All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating spiritual message. It was reportedly channeled, which, means it was delivered through a person acting as a kind of conduit for a non-physical consciousness. And trust me, it starts out by looking at a very familiar figure, but it ends up challenging the very idea of who you are. So let's get into it.
So, the message kicks off, and it's not with some super serious, solemn tone, but with this. Yeehaw! I mean, how unexpected is that? It's playful, it's kind of funny, and it immediately tells you this is not going to be your typical sermon. It's almost like the source is saying, hey, lighten up, because we're about to go real deep.
Okay, so after that surprising opening, the message starts to flow from a voice that identifies itself as Jesus. But as you're about to see, it almost immediately starts to push back on the traditional ideas we have about that name. Right off the bat, the whole dynamic gets flipped on its head. Instead of that familiar picture of a distant savior who you're supposed to worship, this speaker presents himself as an equal, a brother, a teacher who's all about a direct, personal connection with you.
And the source just says it flat out. The main message is that you and I are equals. So the whole focus shifts away from worship and lands right on a shared identity. The only difference, it claims, wasn't about divinity itself. It was simply the complete awareness of that divinity while living in a human body.
Now, this idea has a really powerful implication. I mean, think about it. If the speaker is an equal and not some far-off savior, then what does that do to the whole concept of salvation? Well, it means it has to be completely redefined.
And boom, here it is, the main point of this whole section, stated as clearly as possible. The power isn't somewhere out there, it's right inside you. The job of salvation gets handed directly back to each one of us. That's a huge shift, right? From looking for salvation from some outside force to realizing it's been in you all along.
Okay, but that brings up a really obvious question, doesn't it? If you're your own savior, what's the danger? What is the thing you actually need to be saved from?
And the answer is probably not what you're thinking. According to this message, you're not being saved from sin in the traditional sense. You're being saved from false beliefs. Those self-imposed ideas that you're unworthy, and especially from the core illusion that you could ever be separate from a loving source.
All right, so just when you think you've got a handle on this new interpretation, the message takes this wild metaphysical turn. We're about to find out that the very identity of Jesus as the speaker, well, it's not what it seems either.
And there it is. Whoa, that's a stunning twist. The voice that's been speaking as Jesus now says, I am a mental construct. This is a huge moment in the message, and it's clearly designed to make us stop focusing on who is talking and start focusing on the nature of consciousness itself.
So what on earth does that even mean, a mental construct? Well, the source explains it as a kind of interface. You can think of it like a familiar icon on your computer. You recognize the icon of a person, in this case Jesus, and you click on it to access all the formless energy and information that's behind it. It's a story that makes something formless understandable to us.
So let's break down how this communication is supposed to work. It starts with a universal, formless source. Then that source uses a familiar mental construct as a sort of go-between, which is then finally transmitted through a human channel. So it's like a three-step journey, from this vast universal consciousness all the way down to a personal message you can hear. And all of this brings us to the real heart of the message, the biggest reveal of all. After taking apart the identity of the speaker, the spotlight turns completely around, onto you, the listener. It's all about the ultimate meaning of that little word, I.
So the groundwork for this final idea is pretty mind-bending. It's this: there aren't billions of separate little minds running around. Instead, there is one single, divine mind where every single thought comes from. Our individual minds are really just unique doorways to that one universal consciousness.
Okay, so if that's true, if there's only one mind, one source of all thought, then what in the world does that mean for your sense of self, for your individuality? What about your personal thoughts and feelings? This is where it gets really, really personal. And this right here, this is the mic drop moment of the whole thing. The source claims we've got our own identity completely backward. We don't have a soul. We are soul. We aren't little people having separate thoughts. We are the one universal I, the source itself, just expressing itself through the unique window of our life.
Now, think about what this actually means. The implications are just huge. If we're all expressions of the very same I, then separation is totally an illusion. Hurting someone else is literally hurting yourself. Praying to a separate God is kind of like asking your own reflection for a favor. In this view, your very existence is the universe experiencing joy as you.
So, after all that, where does this journey leave us? We started out by re-examining a familiar voice, and we ended up totally re-examining our own. It seems like the whole point of the message is to get us to see everything, and especially ourselves, with totally new eyes.
And this final quote, man, it really is the whole point, isn't it? It's a simple but incredibly deep invitation. Stop identifying only with your temporary personality, your name, your job, and start to recognize that timeless, universal consciousness that is the one actually doing the seeing, the one looking at the world through you.
So I guess that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. What if that solid wall we all feel between me and you is just an illusion? What if we're all just looking out of different windows in the exact same room? I mean, what would change for you if you really truly saw the world that way?